Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome back to my channel if you're a returning viewer or subscriber. In today's video I'm going to be filming my June wrap up. So I'm going to be talking you through all the books that I read throughout the month of June. I'm very repetitive with my wrap up intros, but we do it every month, so it's hard to make changes. Anyways, my camera is currently balancing on my tripod because I've misplaced the, it's lost, but it's misplaced, the little attachment that actually joins my camera to my tripod. So it's currently just precariously there. I'm not going to make any sudden movements, she says as she radios the chair, and we're going to get into the video. So throughout the month of June I managed to read 5 books, which I'm decently happy with. Sadly, the ratings of them were not fantastic. I did have a couple of good reads and one very good read. On the whole, it was a little bit of a disappointing month, but I'm hoping for better in July. We can always hope for better. So the first book I read in June was an ebook, and it was Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is a little novella that Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote kind of in the middle of her, what is it called? The Hollywood Quartet. The books are all like written in the same universe. So we've got like Daisy Jones, Evelyn Hugo, Carrie Soto, still don't know how you pronounce that, and Malibu Rising. That was the wrong order of things, but whatever. I've enjoyed every single book in that. The lowest rating I've given in that series has been a 4 stars, I believe. 2 5 stars and a 4.5. So overall, I'm a big Taylor Jenkins Reid fan. So I was excited to pick up another kind of style of writing from her because I assumed that I would really enjoy it. Plus the plot sounded fantastic because basically in this book we're following 2 main characters, and these 2 main characters, their spouses are having affairs with each other. So we've got 4 people here, 2 couples, the husband in this couple and the wife in this couple have an affair with each other, and so the other spouses, the ones who are not having the affairs, get in contact over letters and they start to communicate, basically to like suss out what's happening with their spouses, but also to kind of lean on each other to support each other because they know what each other's going through. One of my favourite ever films is In the Mood for Love. It is beautiful and it deals with a very similar kind of subject matter but in a completely different way from how this book did. So in the Mood for Love we have the exact same thing of the kind of victims of the affairs getting in touch with each other, but in the Mood for Love they do this in person, whereas Evidence of the Affair is an epistolary, whatever it's called, novel. Basically it's all written in letters. I thought it was going to be great. I thought it was going to be kind of similar to In the Mood for Love, but maybe like approach things in a slightly different way just because of the format of letter writing. But unfortunately I was extremely disappointed with this book. I kind of don't understand what the point of it was because majority of the plot is quite boring. It's just these 2 people writing to each other, and even though they really care obviously about this thing that their spouses are doing and they're very hurt by it, I feel like that doesn't really translate to the reader. So therefore the characters kind of felt quite undeveloped, and then the ending completely ruined what we had kind of managed to establish about these 2 characters. Got to the end of it and I was like, thank goodness this was short because this was just a waste of my time basically. Yeah, everything that this did wrong, In the Mood for Love did right. I'm going to pretend I didn't read this, but yeah, I did give this a 2 star. It was not good. Then I read and I DNF'd 101 Essays to Change the Way You Think. Is that, what is the title? Yep, I think that's it. I could be wrong. In my video, which I recently did, where I kind of talked through every single book I've read so far this year, that included about 3 books I read in June. I think I mucked up this title, but whatever. Basically, this is a book by this girl called Brianna Wiest, I think. And it's like a self-help book made up of essays to kind of change your like thought process, or like to help you look at life in a different light. I read this via audiobook and it was I got like a good chunk in. I was like 80% through and I was like, I cannot be doing this anymore. Basically I did some research about this lady who wrote this book and I discovered that she has practically 0 qualifications. So anything that she's telling you is literally like she's just done like a quick Google search and then she's kind of told you what she's managed to come up with, or like she's just plucked it from somewhere in her brain. She's like, sounds like a good idea, so here it is. I believe the university degree she has isn't actually in anything related to what her book is about. She's hugely criticized by other people kind of within her field of like self-help books because of her lack of like grounding. There were no notes in this book to kind of like back up her claims, and so her just like reeling off bullet point after bullet point of advice on how to live life to the fullest, emotionally healthy way, I just basically couldn't take her word for it. And when someone's just kind of like meant to be telling you the facts, you kind of want those facts to be actual facts and not just something that's been plucked from thin air. Aside from this, even if the book was great, I think the audiobook route is probably not the best format of reading this book, because once in a blue moon she would actually say something that was kind of interesting. I'd be like, oh, that's really cool, like maybe I'll apply that to my own life, and then like 5 seconds later I would have forgotten it because I couldn't be like marking the book. It was one I feel like you need to be kind of annotating and like highlighting so you can kind of keep what she's telling you. But yeah, this was not it. It even goes so far as to be like, you're feeling down, go for a walk outside or take a hot bath, and it's like, thank you, this has changed my life. Thankfully The next book was a good book. I read The Disappearing Act by Steadman. This was a book that my friend Abby read and really loved, and she wanted me to read it, so she lent me her copy of it. I don't actually have it now because I already gave it back to her. But this is a thriller. It's about a girl who is from England and she's an actress, and her agent encourages her to go to LA for a couple months to kind of hit, what is it, like pilot season? There's like a season in Hollywood where big agencies kind of interact with actors initially before hiring them onto projects. Our main character is hesitant, she's not really interested in doing that, and then she breaks up with her long-term boyfriend and she's like, you know what? I'm gonna go, I'm gonna start fresh, I'm gonna put my all into my career and it's gonna be a great time. So she flies over to LA, she gets treated so nicely, she gets given some like car while she's over there, like for free. It's like a gifted car. She just like posts a picture on Instagram. She's put up in a really stunning hotel with a view of the Hollywood sign. She's thriving basically. And then she goes to a casting, and while she's at the casting she meets a girl who's also going for the same role as her, called Emily. While they're waiting to go in for their auditions, Emily's like, I gotta take this really important call. Please can you top up my parking meter because I think it's gonna run out. Here's my keys and here's my wallet in case you need to move the car or whatever. And our main character's like, yeah sure, I'll do that, no worries. Like, even though this is virtually a stranger she's speaking to. She comes back after having moved the car and everything like that, ready to go in for her audition. But when she comes out of audition she realizes that Emily is missing. There's no trace of Emily having been there, but she has Emily's keys and her wallet, and she's like, what do I do? Police are kind of not helpful at all. So like any kind of naive protagonist in a kind of mystery thriller book, our main character decides to take matters into her own hands and personally look into the disappearance of Emily. And the book kind of just goes from there. There were some mistakes in editing that I thought were kind of like a little bit rough. It was a book I think that was published by Simon Schuster or something like that. I think it was Simon Schuster. But there were lots of mistakes in the editing. So there were double words or spelling mistakes and things like that, which was kind of strange. Aside from that, I've also heard that we often have Americans using British slang, British main character using American slang. I'm just like, bit odd. But on the whole the writing was really good, well paced and everything like that. Atmosphere was fantastic. It was Hollywood but not written in kind of a cliche way. It was kind of leaning into the stereotypes of it just being kind of this vapid world over there. But I thought descriptions of kind of the flashy lifestyle, like the gifting suites and things like that, was great. The ending was slightly disappointing. You obviously find out what happened to Emily, but without spoiling things, the person who was kind of involved in her disappearance or in the kind of like final conflict of this book acts in a way that I feel like is out of character with what they've been through. Yeah, I feel like it's quite common to feel disappointed at the end of a thriller, but overall I thought it was a good book, so I gave it 3.5 stars. Next up, I read my favourite book of the month, and that was Bonjour, Tristesse by Françoise Sagan. This is a Pays Roman classic. It was written in the 1950s and it's translated from the French into English by, what is that translated called? Heather Lloyd. I read this book for a video that I filmed in June and posted in June, and that was reading Louise Vinay's favourite book. Louise Vinay is a singer-songwriter. I love her whole vibe, and so when I saw that she did an Instagram post where she literally hashtag favourite book, I decided to pick up the book she mentioned. Seeing as it was Bonjour, Tristesse, it's one that I've wanted to get to for a long time, and I was very excited to read it. This book is set in the summertime. We're following Cecile, and the only family she has in her life is her father, and so she's very close with him. They live a very carefree, liberal lifestyle, which involves her father always being involved with like a new woman. He kind of has these mistresses, and Cecile and her father live in Paris, but in the summertime they head down to the French Riviera like they always do, and her father brings his mistress down there, and while they're down there this other woman shows up. You kind of see how the lifestyle of Cecile and her father dramatically shifts at the introduction of this woman into their lives. It's something that Cecile kind of fights against. She doesn't want that change to happen. Things go a bit crazy from there. I won't go into massive depth on my thoughts because you can of course watch the video. I put a lot of effort into that. It's definitely the video I've worked the hardest on in my entire like YouTube career, but as well as that I had a lot of fun filming it and making it, so I really appreciate if you checked it out if you hadn't already. This book was extremely kind of succinct in its messaging and its plot, but also you had that thing within classics where you're so capable of getting more out of it than what is just kind of like plainly written for you to see. But yeah, I loved this book a lot. I gave it 4.5 stars. I couldn't get the full 5 just because I didn't have that proper like 5-star feeling, and also because I wasn't completely enamored by the plot. Other than that, it's essentially a flawless book. I'm so glad to finally read it. I'd love to read more from this author as well. And then the final book I read in June was one that I've been hoping to get to for over a year now, and that was My Year of Rest and I don't know what the tense was there. My Year of Rest and Relaxation by moshfegh. My second moshfegh book, and I kind of wish it had been my first, but we'll get into that in a second. So in this book we're following our unnamed protagonist. She is blonde, she's thin, she's pretty, she is extremely privileged in many different ways, but particularly within her family wealth. Parents passed away within the same year, across a couple of months of each other, and it means that she's inherited all of their money. She's living in a beautiful area of New York in a beautiful apartment with no kind of financial stresses on her. We quickly find out, and this is a very present theme throughout the book, that she's never processed the grief of her parents, and as well as that she had a very tricky relationship with both of them in different ways growing up and was treated kind of strangely by them. So there's a lot of kind of things beneath the surface going on with her kind of psyche. And for some reason she gets it into her head that in order to fix herself, what she needs to do is to have a year of rest and relaxation where she essentially will try to sleep as much as she can. She's heard the classic thing about how your cells regenerate so many times over your lifetime, and she takes that a bit too literally, and she's like, okay, this is going to alter my kind of brain chemistry and everything would be fine as long as I take this year off and kind of step away from the world for a bit. She does this by taking a copious amount of drugs, so many different types, but also so many, like in volume. She has an ex-boyfriend who keeps turning up in her life, and she has a best friend from college who also shows up, but other than that we don't really have any other characters within this book because we are kind of just seeing her on her own, dealing with what she's putting herself through. As I said, this was my second moshfegh. The first book I read by her was Lapvona. I really love Lapvona. I gave that 4 stars. It's definitely a book that you kind of get or you don't get. It is very grotesque and it's not very straightforward. I had to kind of look at Reddit threads and stuff like that about what happened in the ending just to like fully understand it, or at least to kind of like reach my own understanding through it. But I thought it was great. It was such a well written, well constructed, intelligent book. So reading this one, it felt very clear to me that this had been a book that had come before Lapvona, because this had this beginnings of those very kind of intellectual, intelligent points, but they were not fully explored in the amount of depth that Lapvona explored them. This is the second book that moshfegh wrote, so I'm very intrigued to read more of her work, particularly her first novel, but also just the books in between this one and Lapvona. So I believe overall that this book could have been stellar if it had been a project that had been left for later years in moshfegh's life, when she'd written other books before this one. There was no part of me that kind of disliked this book. I just think I expected more from it. It was a very quick read, very easy read. Some people have an issue with the fact that there's not really any plot, but that was not a problem for me. It's probably my fault for having read Lapvona first, because I think I would have enjoyed this more had I read this one first. But I think actually having done it the way that I did, it made a lot more sense to me why this book has become kind of a TikTok book. It's kind of the internet's beloved child. I can definitely see why, because it kind of touches on something a little bit deeper, but it doesn't do it in a kind of an unapproachable way. You can just read this book like cover to cover and be like, interesting. There were definitely things to be found within this book beyond the text, but I've got it all by the end of the book and I don't need to do anything further to kind of look into it anymore. I found the ending was somewhat dissatisfying, but I think that was probably the point. But I didn't find anything kind of shocking about this book in terms of like the drugs she was taking, or the way that she treated her best friend, or the way that her ex-boyfriend treated her, because of what I'd known from moshfegh's books with Lapvona. The pacing was a little bit odd, but I think if you're just very clear going into it that you know that there's like no plot, it's like a character study, then I think that you could enjoy it. And I gave that one 3.5 stars. The lighting has completely changed. I was gonna say the sun has come out, but the sun has like emerged through some clouds, so we just got like an overcast, like, you know when the sky looks like it's in the snow? That's what we've got right now. It's also still pouring with rain and I have to leave the house in like 20 minutes. Not thrilled about that. Happy English summer. There you have it, everybody. Those are the 5 books that I read throughout the month of June. I've only got 2 of them here, which is a little bit odd, but I'm hoping to read more physical books throughout July. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on these books. I'm so sorry about the lighting. Very odd. But if you'd like to stick around and see more of my content, then I would love to have you here. I post videos every Wednesday and Saturday. I like to think that we have a good time around here. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, because that's how I can tell that you liked what you saw. And I'll see you very, very soon for another video. Bye.